Welcome to my LinkedIn family. This is the Master Connector Show. Today's topic is, we're going to be talking about, is a change of scenery necessary? Is it something that really you need to change your life? If you have that need, going in today's topic, sort of thinking about this because I have 4 kids with me, as Steve talks about my 16 kids, right? My 4 kids that are with me. And so we sort of planned our life around the next, 15, 16 years of kind of being in the same spot. My 5-year-old just started kindergarten, but I remember not only, earlier on in my career thinking about where could I go to sort of have a better start? What could I be doing? What experiences am I missing out? And even now, hey, should I, just pull my kids out of school, go and have an adventure, go live someplace else? Would that not be the best thing for them? So this show is a little about all of those things, right? Talking around that topic. No small decisions here. We're going to get into it. Stick with us. So glad you're here with us. Master Connector Show.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number 2 is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Being willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles. I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box, in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born. The world is my networking event. Right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life. One conversation can change your life. That's what it's all about. Steve, get us started off here.
Absolutely. What's going on, friends? Steve, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct here. And listen, we're living in an amazing country. There's a lot of good countries out there, but I know the United States in particular was built on the spirit of the immigrant, right? I don't think there's, other than the Native Americans that are here, most of the Americans that are here were from other places or their ancestry goes back. And I have, honestly, a ton of respect for people that move to a new country to start fresh. Many times we hear stories of people coming with $3 in their pocket and they don't even know where they're going to live or what kind of work they're going to do. And it's amazing. And it may not always be moving away, that makes a change for you. But I remember when I went away to camp and I was a kid. I was, some of you guys know, as you heard in the video, I was picked on, bullied. My nickname was the Spaz. That was my nickname growing up because I was uncoordinated. I was awkward. I was just not the best version of me. Let's just say it like that. And I went to sleepaway camp for the very first time. And I remember how I felt. I had a chance to start fresh. Nobody knew the old Steve. Nobody knew what I was like. And I was like one of the most popular kids when I went to camp. I was the most athletic, like second most fastest guy in the team. And, it was a chance for me to start fresh. And I love the fact of that. And, we have opportunities in our life, not always if we move from another country, which you can hear about today from Patrick, our guest, but sometimes it's just a change. Maybe it's to a new city. Maybe it's just a new job. Maybe it's a new situation. Maybe it's a new relationship, right? But you have a chance to change your scenery. And that association, that change of scenery can really make a difference and perhaps better your life. So if you're ready for us to introduce our amazing guest, I'd like you to go ahead and type in the comments right now. Go ahead right now. We don't want there's no LinkedIn lurkers on this show. everyone's participating, even if it's just put in the comments. We want you to type in hashtag Go Patrick, right? So go ahead, type in Go Patrick. And I'm going to have my amazing co-host here, Cameron, bring Patrick up. And I just thank you so much, Cameron. You're amazing piece of this show, and I just can't do, couldn't imagine doing it without you. So turn to you, sir. You're muted, sir.
Touches my heart every day. Thank you, Steve. Here we go. I'm going to put Patrick on the screen here. We'll get him going. All right. Patrick Ward. Everyone has an ocean they need to cross to get where they want to be in life. You don't have to have the end goal fully fleshed out. It's better to be agile on your path to reach your goals so you can respond to the inevitable obstacles life will throw your way. Don't be afraid of making a stand on what you want to do and what you don't want to do. It's better to be memorable and command others' attention than to appear to be everything to everyone. Patrick Ward is the VP of marketing for Rootstrap, a custom software developing agency that digitally transforms companies like Masterclass and Google, along with A-list celebrities like Tony Robbins and Snoop Dogg, and the founder of Nano Globals, an expert-led platform that helps mid-sized tech companies tap into global markets through remote hiring, offshoring, and international market expansion. A writer by trade, Patrick's international brand and B2B marketing expertise has been featured in Forbes, Ad Age, Fast Company, Morning Brew, Hacker Noon, HuffPost, and Business Insider. Patrick is currently a member of the Forbes Communications Council, an invitation-only organization for senior-level communications executives, and Pavilion, a private invitation-only community of sales and marketing execs at growth-focused companies. Please welcome to the show, the passionate and the weaver of words, Mr. Patrick Ward. Yep, there we go. We got you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited to be here.
Excellent. We got Yolanda checking in saying, go Patrick. Val's in the comments saying, go Patrick. We appreciate our community members. Got LinkedIn member. You can always go to Facebook. I'm just going to get myself on the screen. You can always go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. If you're not showing up in the comments, that is the way so that you will show up. So I'm going to say that one more time, StreamYard.com/Facebook. And that way, Susan Fargo, if you go there, you can show up in the comments as well. Thank you for checking in. Yolanda's saying welcome. We appreciate you. Steve, let's get this conversation started.
Absolutely. Well, good stuff, Patrick. It's great to see you again, and it's great to having you on back here on the show here. So our communities, we're all about stories. So we want to hear your story. So if you're ready, community, we want you to type in right now #story, and we want to hear about Patrick's ocean crossing story. And, obviously the abridged version, sir, obviously with a 30-minute show here, but definitely want to hear kind of how that happened for you. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll try not to turn it into a novel. But as my accent belies, I am originally from Australia, and my ocean crossing story is a literal one in that I had everything going for me. I had finished my college degree, I had a job lined up, and I had all my family and friends in Australia. But I looked at where my life was, and I remember this fairly visceral moment in the ad agency that I was working at, and noticing that everyone around me had been doing the same job for about 10 years. And so I looked at that situation and saw this is the next 10 years of my life flashing before my eyes. And I just wasn't ready to do that. I wanted something different, something more. And so I packed up everything. Most of my family and friends thought I was crazy. Like, why are you leaving a secure job? Why are you leaving the network that you've known your whole life? And I just said, I'm going to take a chance. So I crossed that ocean. I came to LA with nothing. Basically, I had about 2 months of runway. I figured if I figured it out, great. And if I didn't, well, the worst that was going to happen was I was going to have to put my tail between my legs and drag myself back to Australia. But now, 6 years later, it has really paid off in ways that obviously Cameron has articulated in my bio, which has been very, very fortunate for me. And I've been incredibly grateful for the professional development, the personal advancement that has come to me because of this country. But it really gives me one little hypothesis that I want every single person to take away right now. And so I want each of you who are listening here today to think about, what is the ocean in your life that you need to cross? It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical ocean, but it might be a big barrier. And you might think that that barrier is insurmountable. But my message to you is that not only is it not insurmountable, but by crossing it, you will unlock a better version of yourself than you could have possibly imagined.
That's amazing. And I'd like community, if you can, please go in there. I'm sure Cameron's on this, but go ahead and type in right now, if you can, what's your ocean? What is the ocean that you're looking to cross, that you need to cross right now? It doesn't have to mean going from the beautiful country of Australia to the US. So, but listen, that's interesting, right? Because, I have a friend of mine who, a relatively newer friend I met through LinkedIn, surprise, surprise. And we've developed an amazing friendship, and he's an American, but he moved to Australia for like 12 years and then wound up coming back. And he told me how amazing it is there, right? And there was a sort of a sense of, he described it, not complacency, but there's a real comfort there that people just, he said, customer care in most companies are not that great in Australia because of this. And I think you and I think talked about this in our conversation. Yeah. And so you had this complacency, this kind of comfortable place, but you moved away and became uncomfortable to kind of start fresh. I think that's amazing. Kudos to you for taking that leap of faith,
I appreciate that, Steve, because leaning into that discomfort is like the most critical component. Like, you're absolutely right. I could have had a perfectly fine, perfectly comfortable, by all, demonstrable metrics, a very successful life in Australia. But really what it was about was finding an environment that was going to allow me to be the best version of myself. And I say this, that, America is not the land for everyone. Some people may want a certain level of comfort. Maybe they value different components of their life, and that's totally fine. I think that's totally valid. But for me and my particular ambitious personality, there was only one way. I was figuring that I needed to move away from Australia in order to grow, in order to have that discomfort. And fortunately enough, the American opportunity opened itself to me.
That's great. And kind of a side note, just a human interest kind of thing. So it was recently my birthday, and my wife and I had a quiet night at home, and we're on Netflix, trying to find a movie to watch, and I wound up watching I Am Woman. Now, it's probably not my go-to kind of movie. I'm more of a kind of like a war movie, or like a Gladiator, or like a sports movie like Friday Night Lights. But I watched it, and for our younger folks, they probably don't even know what this is. But Helen Reddy was Australian. She came to the States, I believe it was in like the late 60s, early 70s, and to pursue a recording career, as a singer, and hit a lot of obstacles, but came here. She had, I think, like almost no money, but she had a return ticket to Australia, and she was committed to make it work. It's a great story. There's some political, female activist stuff in there, which I still think, honestly, that needs to shift. I mean, I'm not an activist in any way, but I think there needs to be some things, without getting too political here. We need to work on the equal rights thing a lot more, but not to get too distracted on that. The point I'm making is, it's a cool story of somebody similar, and they came here. And again, yes, you could say the U.S. is the land of opportunity. The streets are paved with gold. And, when you go and drive in the New York area, sometimes the streets ain't paved. They're not paved at all, So I don't know about that, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity here, like there is in other places. But it's amazing what you can do when you take a chance. It's more about taking that chance and going and trying and starting afresh and starting anew. So we want to kind of dig into this a little bit here, Patrick, and we want to talk about, a little bit more on, you said that everyone has an ocean they need to cross to get to where they want to be in life. Can you expand that out a little bit more? I know you sort of touched on it. So, and yeah, if you're ready for Patrick's answer, type in the word, thank you, Cameron, #ocean. Again, we want you to participate. We're not going to let you just sit there and listen. Okay. Community, we want your involvement. So go ahead and type in #ocean. And yeah, Patrick, tell us a little bit more on what you mean by that.
Yeah, so let's dig in a little bit more into the story and how it's applicable to pretty much everyone. Because if you looked at once I came into the United States, already there were reasons that most people would say, why did you do that? You suddenly have a much more difficult time doing basic things like banking. You have difficulty renting apartments, because there's all this suspicion around you of like, well, there's no track record, there's no history. So any, fairly ordinary, mundane activities suddenly are 2 times, 3 times, 10 times harder. But even when we coming into the workplace, I still remember the very first job I got was basically a flat line from my previous role. It was about exactly the same money, so it wasn't going up. It was about the exact same responsibilities, but I viewed it as this is my foot in the door to America. And then very rapidly, I was able to grow my career. And I was able to grow my career because, again, I was in a place that served my ambition. And that, I think, is the key, because more often than not, people feel like, okay, maybe I'm living in a certain place, therefore that's where I have to stay. And the problem this creates is it creates a stagnation and a complacency in your own mind. When you're uncomfortable, by definition, you have to grow in order to once again reach a place of comfort. And so by forcing yourself into those positions, you don't want to be obviously, terribly discomfortable, but a little bit of discomfort is good, because that growth is the key to that better life of yours. When you're in those environments that maybe you've grown up in a certain city, maybe you've had your whole schooling, you've got all your friends, you've got your family, it can lead to time just passing you by. I think the reason why I'm so fixated on this idea is I took a psychology major in college, and it was on the concept of why we perceive time the way we do. If you remember, when you're a kid, time goes forever. And then later when you get into adulthood, it seems to go really fast. And the phenomenon that's hypothesized of why this happens is because you have more new experiences when you're a child than you do as an adult. The fact of the matter is, our minds use mental checkpoints of new experiences to dictate how fast time goes. And so if you're able to put yourself into an uncomfortable position where you have to grow, not only do you have more growth opportunities, you're actually able to slow down time. And that's the key for me in terms of living a fulfilling life, a life that I can be very proud of, as opposed to, I feel very sorry for people when they say things like, where did the time go? Or
I want to throw this in here because if anybody's ever seen that movie Click with Adam Sandler, just like living life on automatic, you're just doing the same things. You're not really engaged. You're not doing, you're not really involved in creating these different experiences for yourself, for your family, for your company, for people around you on a day-to-day, right? So the time is flying by. And I often talk about that in terms of why I prefer living in New York. No disrespect to my Californians, but I grew up between New York City and Southern California, right? And Patrick's coming to us from Los Angeles today. I grew up up until the age of 7 in Southern California, San Diego County. And one of the things I talk about is, the seasons go by and then everything's kind of, in Southern California, it's a nice thing. It's a really beautiful thing, but you don't really get that passing of time, the markers that you do in a place where the seasons really change and have the extremes, the extreme cold, the extreme heat, the beautiful spring, the beautiful fall, death and, revival, all that good stuff. And so you get that experience. And one of the things I wanted to just sort of bring up, because you talked about the childhood pieces, I got that incredible experience of going to a different place as a child and having a whole new perspective and having a whole new perspective of the way other people saw me. So in New York City, I was going to school and I would go to summers and spend time with my family down there, and we'd have friends that were around the house and everything. And so, as I got to be a teenager and I'm going to spend my summers in California, and, you can start, noticing the opposite sex, the other, in New York City, you know how it is for folks that are New Yorkers, the blinders are on going down the street. People don't even look at you. And I felt, a little socially awkward, but suddenly I go to Ramona, California, where my mom was at the time. And all of the people are paying attention to me. First of all, I'm new meat, right? So there's that, right? You're from someplace else, right? And I noticed that they were noticing me, and I became almost a different person. And thinking about today's show, that was, one of the things that was on my mind as well. So it's one of those effects. If you just change where you are, suddenly your perspective switches, and other people's perspective is just totally new, and so can really change up the game for you.
I just want to also comment on what you said, Patrick. There was a lot of good nuggets. I know we have we pull out what we call mic drop moments, and I know that we got a few here already. But number one, the comfort zone, right? You talked about, right, and the fact that when you want to get, I've learned to be comfortable in uncomfortable, right? To just, because if you're comfortable, it's just, I know that I'm not growing, and when I'm not growing, I don't feel right. I need to always be growing. To me, it's become a cliche. I hear it all the time, and I say it a lot. And that is, you're either a tomato that's ripening or a tomato that's dying. It's rotting, and you need to kind of continually grow. And if you don't challenge yourself, you're not going to grow, and you're not going to, you got to challenge yourself. When you're working out, if you want to grow muscles, right? You gotta go past that part where it's hurting a lot. You got to go through that, and then if you do that, you're going to start to break muscle tissue down and regrow muscle. And that's so important in life and success in general. The other piece that really resonated for me, Patrick, that you spoke about is the changes that you do, and what you spoke about as a kid, how it seems like it goes slow because there's so many new things going on. And then when you get older, and that makes sense, right? Because if you've been in a job for 30 years, it's like that's one chapter of your life for 30 years. If you've been to 6 different jobs, you probably have 6 different chapters. And it feels like, there's all sorts of moments, and it just slows it down, versus like that. The 30 years at a job was one single kind of blip.
Well,
right?
it's interesting too, when you look at resumes, right? Oh, here's a person, they've been at this job for 12 years, and there's like 4 lines of like their responsibilities, whatever, right? And then, the next job that's on the, either above or below, they were at that job for 6 months, 6 lines, right? The same, so it's like, that lived experience, and you go different places and you get these huge chances to really amp up your level of experience really quickly. And it's just really interesting how life works like that. I love that, Steve.
Yeah, no, but I think it's a great point. And I never thought of it that way, the way you articulated it, how multiple changes can really slow life down. That's profound, quite frankly. It's genius. So thank you for pointing that out. We do want to keep things rolling because we're at the 20-minute spot here on the show. So we want to go now talk about goals. So if you're ready, community, I want you to type in #goals. And if there was some other point that you were going to speak about before when Cameron and I cut you off, please feel free to finish that also. But roll it into goals, right? Do you have, I know in your bio is read that you talked about not having to have your end goals fleshed out. Why is that? Why, why don't you have to have your end goals fleshed out? Tell us a little bit about your perspective on that.
Yeah, so obviously we've been talking about oceans, crossing an ocean, and that may come across prescriptive. And what I want to encourage everyone to do is you only need to take the action. You do not have to have the end goal fully fleshed out. And what do I mean by that? You don't need to fully understand where you're going. You just need to take that first step in order to realize your potential. And the reason for this is because too often do I see people are fixated on finding their passion, making sure that what they want to do is exactly the right thing. And unfortunately, a side effect of this is I see a lot of stress in people. I see a lot of anxiety where people are thinking like, oh, I've got a limited amount of time to figure it out. Like if I don't figure it out, I'm a failure. And I want to bring my perspective here, which is when I came to America, I certainly did not know that I'd be here. I didn't know that I'd be a VP before I was 30. I didn't know that I'd be featured in many of these publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur and Fast Company, which have all been like massive, improvements to my life and to my professional development. But I didn't know any of that was possible. I just knew that I had to take the step in order to avail myself of those opportunities. And so this is where I want people to consider building agility into their life, because you don't necessarily know what opportunities are going to come to you. And even right now, people might say to me, I had a former colleague say this to me the other day. Oh, Patrick, you seem to have everything figured out. And I told him, no, I don't. I have 3 possible paths for my life right now. And one of them could be me continuing up the chain towards being a CMO. Another one could be completely switching industries again. I've done that multiple times in my career. Another path could be the entrepreneurial route. I have a side venture and I could grow that to a certain level. Now, I'm not married to any one of these paths, but I create that optionality and that agility in my life so that if a certain obstacle comes my way, then I don't get frazzled by it. I want to give a quick story here. So when the pandemic started, we know March of 2020 was when everything shut down. February of that year, I did my first speaking gig at a 1,500 person trade show in the Los Angeles Convention Center. I just released a book earlier that year, and I thought this was going to be my year. I'm going to be going around the conference circuit, speaking on a bunch of different stages. Well, what do you know? March 2020 happens, everything shuts down. I pivoted to doing a digital venture, which is now my side venture, and I spent my time on that. Now, if I'd been so fixated on just being a public speaker, I might have freaked myself out. I might have had so much stress, so much anxiety, but I just thought, no, like that path is closed for now, might come back in the future. I've just got to pivot over here, be agile, and try something else. And what do you know?
I need to jump in there because that's awesome, because I think there's a couple things. Number one, I think we know that everyone talks about multiple revenue streams, right? Multiple streams of income. But I think people are just thinking that in terms of wealth creation, but they're not also thinking what you just said, which is what if one of those paths, COVID hits again or something or whatever, the next World War III or something, whatever it's going to be, the next thing, right? God forbid, right? But there's something hits and you need to have options. I did that instinctively as a younger adult. I remember. And I would tell people this, and I hadn't met you yet, Patrick, but I did that. And I spoke about, like, I remember back then I had my advertising career. I could go down the route of the liquor industry with my dad, and I had the martial arts, and I would tell people I have 3 paths that I would be comfortable going in any 3 of those directions. And I kind of let life, the universe, if you will, kind of steer which made the most sense. But I ultimately, the one thing I will say though is this, is that I still knew generally how I wanted to live. And that's the one area that I think younger people don't really focus enough on. They talk too much on the path and the what and the how, and less about the why, about what that life that they want looks like. And I knew how I wanted to live, which is having freedom to be able to travel and having the ability to just to make a difference and be significant. And I was looking at ways in which to create that, but I had 3 or 4 paths in which I could take. And I've always tried to create those paths for myself because, like you said, obstacles will come. And if you're only focused on one thing and you get a roadblock, now you're basically starting from scratch on something else. And that's tough, right? I know Cameron has spoken about that himself, where, his heavy focus was on the event industry, event catering, staffing, and COVID hit. And he had to start kind of, he created BizDev Live as a way to kind of pivot around that, right, Cameron? So it's challenging.
Yeah. Talk about hitting. We just did a show, Rock Bottom, right? And so
Yeah.
you hit rock bottom business wise for sure. So talk to us. How do you respond to these things? What's the best way to respond to the inevitable obstacles that life will throw your way, Patrick? I'm going to ask everybody to put the hashtag respond in the chat. So put the hashtag respond in the chat. Talk to us, Patrick.
Yeah, so the inevitable obstacles, and Steve kind of touched on this in his comments as well, is that they're going to happen. Like, there's no growth without obstacles. And so the key here is you want to basically make a fairly distinct decision with each obstacle that you come to. Now, you're either going to make a decision that this is an obstacle that is surmountable, and then that's where you put the time, the energy, the effort. Or if you think that the obstacle is too great, something like a COVID, that is when you have to pivot. And this is why having that optionality of your paths is so critical, because by having that optionality, it's not to say that that obstacle won't exist for a certain period of time. It just might change due to the passing of time. So again, using a concrete example, I knew that being on stage was something really important to me. But I knew with the pandemic, when that shut everything down, it wasn't going to happen anytime soon. But I kept availing myself of opportunities. I still did some virtual stuff like we're doing right now. Wasn't quite the same, but it was something. And kept networking with those people, knowing that eventually time would remove that particular obstacle. Well, what do you know? June of this year rolls around and I get an opportunity to speak alongside the former CMO of Samsung. Now, again, we go back to where we started. If you told Patrick back in Australia that he would ever in his life speak on stage with a former CMO of a massive conglomerate like Samsung, he would have told you you're crazy. But those are the opportunities that can come to you if you're willing to disrupt yourself, to disrupt your life. Again, it's a really hard thing to do. It's we're biologically wired to seek comfort. So you have to counter that innate tendency. But the obstacles will always come. That's not a question. But you need to be able to decide, is this an obstacle I can crush now? Can I get over it now? Or do I need to wait for the time to shift? Because again, we know this as with business. Life is about, there are trends. Some trends peak, some dip. That all happens. That's the natural flow of life. And if you can synchronize yourself with what you want to do with those trends in the right way, it's not about being fleeting. You still need to, draw your line in the sand, but you need to have that adaptability within yourself, because otherwise then to use the expression, you're just throwing good money after bad.
Yeah. And resilience, right? You need that resilience to be able to handle that. That's amazing. Steve.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're getting towards the top of the hour. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. We'll just I'm a big believer in taking a stand. So if you're ready, let's do #stand, and let's just go for a minute here. And again, you definitely have the gift of communication, Patrick, for sure, and we appreciate that. But let's keep it concise. Should we take a stand on what we want to do and what we don't want to do? And let's talk real briefly about that, and then at that, give the community, our community, opportunity on how to best reach you.
Absolutely. So the key here is that you've taken the plunge, you've crossed your ocean, you've built in agility into your life, but you still need to stand for something. Now, this is not just a value statement. This is also a professional statement, because when you start looking like that jack of all trades, it's fine to be flexible, but if you literally do everything for everyone, you end up speaking to no one. And this is critical, that you need to be able to command people's attention. Well, unfortunately, like it or not, there is a phenomenon that people like to put others into boxes. Now, you can still shift their perception, but only once they've gotten to know you. So it's really important that you can make a very clear statement of like, this is what I'm best at, and this is what I'm not good at. And I see this all the time with jobs. I see too many people who like take a job that they think, well, I need the job because I need money, and that's fine. But often that line of thinking ends up putting you in a worse situation. It can be very scary to do this, but I'll give you a quick story of it. When I was leaving my previous role in a finance company, I got a job offer with a cybersecurity firm. Wasn't really right for me, seemed not matching my skill set. I turned it down, but it was more money than I was making. My coworkers who were doing a job search with me said I was crazy. Well, what do you know? 3 weeks later, I got a new job in the industry that I'm in now, mobile app development, which I'm very much enjoying. And more importantly, it was even more money than the offer I turned down. Now, it's very hard to do that, but by making the stand of this is what I'm good at, this is not what I'm good at, that once again can position you to live a life not only fulfilling for yourself, but fulfilling for so many people around you.
I love that.
Yeah, I love shows like this, Steve, because we get this sense, right? And this is one of those things, and good things worth doing. We talked about this a lot in terms of if it's worth doing, it's not easy. And so you get into these positions and these decision places in your life, and there's a lot of advice coming at you. And so you really need to have that critical thinking cap on, because I know every day I'm in the business of service. And so we are leaning towards yes. And not only are we leaning towards yes because we want to please our clients and the people that we're working with, but we're wanting to grow the business. And so we don't want to turn away business. We want to be able to say yes so that we can increase the business lines. But there's also those crucial moments and those points when you need to say, no, we don't do that. We don't do this, right? We know what our lane is, and we know what we can do. And we also stand by our word, right? And so knowing your lane and knowing what you can do versus how much you can feel like you can stretch yourself. These are not easy things, folks. But that's why we do this mentorship. This is why we have our network. This is why we connect. And this is why we talk with the Master Connector.
Absolutely. And I just, there's a phrase, stand for something or fall for anything. And you definitely want to take a stand for sure. But at the same time, for me, it's a moral thing, right? If morals and values, if it lines up, I'll do it. If in the long run, it kind of meets with what I'm looking to accomplish long term, right? Again, not to go back to the previous question, but a lot of times we just don't know where the final result is going to be. But like you said in your story, look at what the benefit was. You took that stand, you moved into it, and it benefited you in a major way. So the biggest thing that I'd like for our community to really understand, and the message here is just do it, right? Like Nike, right? Just do it. Don't be afraid. You don't have to have everything thought through. Imagine if you had to have everything thought through before you got married. Like, how would that work, right? I need to know all the details before I get married. How do you do that, right? I mean, you can't. You got I love one of my favorite books to talk a lot about is The Magic of Thinking Big. And it talks about the 3 success diseases, right? Detailitis, procrastination, and excuse-itis. And don't be in those don't have those diseases, right? You got to just go. You got to move. And in your movement, God, higher power, universe will steer you. You can't, he doesn't steer a parked car. You got to move. Keep moving. But if you move, good things will happen. If you stay still, you stay stuck, you stay dormant. Sometimes there's going to be times where you need to stand and you need to stay still. But in general, I believe movement is going to take you. But we are really way over our time. So Patrick, could you please tell the community how the best way to reach you? And we're going to close out with Crush It right after that.
Of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Patrick James Ward, all one word.
Fantastic. All right, great stuff. So listen, we love our community. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully you're sharing this out to your community. Any of your friends that haven't had a chance to get on here, go ahead and share the live link here that you're at right now, if you can. And we're also on YouTube. Don't forget to support go check out our sponsors, Sales Connector with there it is. Thank you, Cameron, with Wes Lemos and Jordan Mendoza's Blaze Your Own Trail. Great resources for you to grow your community, grow your LinkedIn. But we appreciate everybody. Hopefully this has inspired you. And we're going to count down. Patrick, we have a tradition in this show where we count down 1 through 5 to 1. And we shout out Crush It. We do a little fist pump right to the screen. So and the community, you're gonna count down with us, in typing out. So you're ready, Cameron? You ready for us?
Let's do it. 5,
4, 3, 2,
1.
1. Crush it.
Crush it.
Have an amazing week, everybody. We are so excited that you joined us today. All the folks in the chat. We had Chris Kane, my Mount Pleasant buddy, checking in. Alan Greenwald checking in. Val checking in. Yolanda checking in. We appreciate you so deeply for being a loyal part of this community and showing up. Susan Farrago, thanks for being here today. We appreciate you. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to have Eric Lurs. And he's going to talk to us about how to unleash outrageous growth. Today, we talked about how to disrupt yourself. Next week, we'll be talking about outrageous growth. These are great topics. Thank you so much, Patrick Ward, for being with us. Community, we love you. You make this show what it is. We will see you next week.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number 2 is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Being willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You can reach a lot more people. You can broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles.
I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born.
The world is my networking event, right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life.